Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan, King Cull, Cormac MacArt, Solomon Kane, and many others, from great pulp stories and action and adventure. Amazing stuff. Hi, I'm Gary Lovisi, and we're going to take a look at some of Robert E. Howard's paperbacks, vintage paperbacks today. Howard was a pulp author who wrote for Weird Tales and many other pulps, and he wrote in many genres from the basically late 20s and 1930s, and he had some works published after his death. He was born in 1906 in Texas, and he died in 1936 at just 30 years of age. Tragically, because he was becoming a famous writer. He had created Conan the Barbarian. He basically founded the subgenre of heroic fantasy. He created Solomon Kane, King Cull, and other fantastic adventure heroes. He was influenced by H.P. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, and many other fantastic authors, Edgar Rice Burroughs also. And it was just a shame that at 30 years of age, he was devoted to his mother, and when she passed away, he killed himself. And it's a terrible shame because he would have probably, if he would have lived, he may have lived to see Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Conan movies. He would have been an old man at that time, but he may have lived to see that. That would have been quite wonderful for him to see that, his character come to life in the screen like that, and to get the acknowledgement and recognition that he truly deserved. His stories are hard-boiled, tough, gritty, sword and sorcery. The demons and the wizards and the magicians are truly evil and scary, right out of Lovecraft. His heroes are right out of if you look at the movie Gladiator, you see like the general in Gladiator. Conan is that kind of heroic figure. He is a hero like no other, unlike any other. And the only one that comes close is Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan or John Carter of Mars. And Conan's a little more gritty and a little more like loose with the rules, let's say, and a little more hard-hitting. But the stories are just incredible. What I'm going to do is just show you a few of his vintage paperbacks now, and just talk a little bit about Robert E. Howard. First thing is first Robert E. Howard paperback was the Ace Double D36 from 1952 or 53, Conan the Conqueror. I believe that's Norman Saunders cover art. In it, Conan is shown more as like a Roman type figure rather than the barbarian that we'll be more accustomed with when the Lancer books reprinted the 12 books in the Lancer series. They combined all the stories in the 1960s, and most of the books had incredible Frank Frazetta covers. So here's these are the early Lancer books. This is volume 2, Conan the Warrior, and you can see just the Frank Frazetta cover art on this. He's on top of the pile of bodies that he's killed. The fierce barbarian fighting with axe. He's got his hand on the throat of one of his enemies, and it's just a unbelievable, intense battle scene right out of Frazetta's fantastic imagination, but it's right out of Howard's fantastic imagination because this is Conan, and Frazetta captured him perfectly. Another Lancer book with the Frazetta covers, Conan the Conqueror. Again, this is the first Lancer printing, which reprints the Ace from the 50s. These are from the 1960s. Say about 65 to 71 maybe. And again, Lancer published What they did was they collected all of the stories in the Conan series that had been published in Weird Tales and other pulps by Robert E. Howard, and a few that were finished by L. Sprague de Camp. He edited the series, but he finished a couple of stories. Lynn Carter finished a couple of stories. Conan the Conqueror is the only really novel-length story in the 12-book Lancer series. But these Frazetta paintings were pretty unbelievable. Years ago, in the 70s, I went to the Frazetta Museum in Pennsylvania, and I saw these paintings on the wall, and I just stood in front of them, and it like melted my mind to see these paintings up close like that.
That's what happened?
That's what happened. It melted my mind, actually did. I mean, I was in awe, and to see these up close is quite amazing. Now, we all know about Elaine DeWillow, who is a fantastic artist on the romance covers,
yes,
but her husband, John DeWillow, did a lot of science fiction, and he did one or two books in the Conan series, and he did Conan The Freebooter. So this is a John DeWillow cover.
Oh, cool.
With the giant gorilla. Now back to Frazetta. These are the two unbelievable. I don't have all of the 12 Lancer books, so I leave some things to your imagination. There's a few that I'm not going to show, but I'm going to show a lot of other things, so I hope that makes up for it. But you can track them down and find them. They're around, and they're reasonably priced. This is book number 4, Conan the Usurper. And here he's on this giant snake, which is probably Tathaman, the wizard, in his in the guise of Set the snake, which is the wizard that he usually fights against. Again, these contain stories that have been collected from the pulps, from Weird Tales and others. And one of my favorites is just the first. It's the first book, but it's actually book 5 in the Lancer series. It has some stories by that have been completed by Lynn Carter and L. Sprague de Camp, but it's just a book, simple title, Conan. Frazetta cover, and here he is fighting the monstrous ape Thak. When he, as young Conan, he's a thief, and he goes up against this a great ape guardian of a wizard's tower, and it's pretty amazing. Conan the Avenger is actually has Bjorn Nyberg, a Swedish author and fan of the Conan series, contributed some what to this story. This is from 1967, Conan the Avenger. Conan coming right at you with Frazetta cover again. The last book in the series from 1973 is Conan the Buccaneer. It collects 4 stories by L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter, based on Robert E. Howard. And Conan the Buccaneer actually has one of the best Frazetta covers ever. I mean, it's just amazing. He's fighting in the fury of in the middle of battle. The Lancer series is a terrific series to have. They're really great cover art because of the Frazetta covers, and the stories are great. It's you can't stop reading these. They were reprinted many times by Lancer, by Ace Books with the same cover art. They were also reprinted in the UK by Spear Books, and here's one of the Spear Conan The Adventurers. This is a Spear book from early 1970s, and it's an amazing Frazetta cover. Just Conan. He's older now. He's like the last man standing, literally, upon the corpses of all of the enemies that he's slain, the wizards, the demons, the monsters, and yet in the background Frazetta had painted all of the wizards, demons, and monsters that surround him. It's amazing, amazing cover. Howard also wrote a lot of Conan type stories in the pulps, and he wrote really everything. He wrote hard-boiled crime. He wrote a lot of Western stories that were pretty good, and he wrote stories about Solomon Kane, a Puritan adventurer, King Cull, who became the king of Atlantis, Cormac MacArt, an Irish adventurer, and many others. And he wrote horror stories in the Lovecraft vein, and again many westerns. Wolf's Head is a Lancer book from the 1960s, and you can see it's in the style of their Conan books, again with the Frazetta cover. And this is horror stories, many of them from Weird Tales. This is the next book is King Cull. Cull was a barbarian who became the king of Atlantis, very much in the Conan tradition, a little more refined than Conan, although Conan would become king of Aquilonia when he got older. King Cull was a younger king, and kind of a young Conan, and he had a sidekick, Brule the Spear Slayer, who was another barbarian warrior, and the two of them kind of took over Atlantis from the Serpent Men. And in this book, in King Cull, this is the third printing from 1972. And in this book, you have stories of how they fought the Serpent Men and other wizards, and kind of in the world of prehistory. The cover art is by Roy Krenkel. It's one of his most outstanding covers. Earlier printings of this book feature the whole cover, the whole art, all on the cover. So it's like quite striking, but it's just a great Roy Krenkel cover. In the 1970s, Zebra Books published a whole slew of Robert E. Howard books, and they basically he wrote a lot of what were called then Oriental adventure novels. Basically, they were stories about American or British adventurers in the exotic Far East, in India, in China, in the Afghanistan, Pakistan area of the world, and he would write these stories also with the Malay pirates, all these settings that were, incredible places where there'd be adventure and action and warfare and intrigue. And he wrote these stories, and he also wrote historical stories for the pulps about certain kings and historical kings and queens, and but always putting his own Robert E. Howard aspect on every one of the stories. They were always full of action and adventure, and just incredible to read. They're nonstop. All his stuff was just nonstop reading. These Zebra books, a lot of them have Jeff Jones cover art. Jeff Jones was a prolific cover artist in the 60s and 70s, who did terrific work as far as heroic fantasy and horror. So let me just move these out of the way for a minute, and we'll look at the Zebra book from the 1970s, Sowers of the Thunder. And these are all first time in paperback. Most of them are first book editions of collecting of these stories. So this is And they had wraparound covers by Jeff Jones. Beautiful, beautiful work. Pigeons from Hell, another zebra book. Dinosaurs and pterodactyls fighting. Again, it's a wraparound cover. The back cover isn't really so special on a lot of these. Unfortunately, this has a reading crease down the spine, but it's still a beautiful book. And what's really important with these books is not only the beauty of the cover art, but the beauty of the stories inside. I mean, I've read probably every one of the stories, all the Conans and all of the other heroes and all of these books I've read. And they never let you down. This is from 1976, The Iron Man, and Howard wrote boxing stories too. And this is a book that collects them. It's the first paperback printing of that. Again, Jeff Jones cover art. The Incredible Adventures of Dennis Dorgan is another zebra book. I believe that this is Jeff Jones also. J signs it there. And another great horror collection of stories is The Vultures of Wapeton. And horror stories from Weird Tales and other places, other magazines, the pulps from the 30s.
And, I see they're getting their money's worth with Conan. He's on every book.
Yeah, well, they put Conan in big letters everywhere because people wanted to know that this is the author that wrote the Conan stories. And the Conan stories were very popular. The Conan books by Lancer sold like crazy. And they were also, at the same time, Marvel Comics came out with their Conan comic book series, which was a big hit with artwork by, the first 24 issues were by Barry Smith art, which was magnificent. So the Conan was really hot, and then the movie with, it's two movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, Conan was hot, and they wanted to republish all of these stories, which had never really seen print before, except in pulp magazines and occasionally in some of the rare, very limited print run Robert E. Howard fanzines, like the Howard Collector and things like that, which they were only printed in maybe hundreds of copies, a couple of hundred copies or so, and are pretty rare today. Another one of these fine books is The Lost Valley of Iskander. Iskander was the I guess it's the East Asian name for Alexander. It's Alexander the Great. So these were stories of Oriental intrigue in strange foreign lands with British or American adventurers, heroic guys who went and made their fortune in very strange lands among strange people. Could have been a science fiction book set on another planet like John Carter of Mars, but there's plenty of different cultures and intrigue and action on the planet Earth, and Howard always could find a little corner of the Earth there or in Africa or any place to set an adventure story, and he did. Tigers of the Sea introduces another Howard hero, Cormac MacArt, who was an Irish adventurer, Irish barbarian. Again, Jeff Jones cover art. Howard did pirate stories. He did like everything you could think of. Black Volmia's Vengeance. This is a zebra book from 1978. This is a collection of his pirate stories. And it's the cover art is by Barber, who took over on the covers after and did covers also with Jeff Jones. Jeff Jones did a lot of the covers, and then Barber did a lot more of the covers. again with Bran McMorn. We have Tigers of the Sea, and there was Worms of the Earth, another Bran McMorn collection of stories, Pulp Stories, Jeff Jones cover art, and these were later, the series was later continued by Andrew Offutt, and he did a really good job on them. Another book that's is pretty scarce is The Sword Woman from 1977, Zebra Books. I believe Steve Fabian did the cover for this. It's a collection of his female swords fighting heroic pulp fiction stories. Lee Brackett did the introduction, and it's a little scarce copy. Then Zebra did 2 books of the book of Robert E. Howard and the second book of Robert E. Howard. So it's volume 1 and 2, illustrations by Jeff Jones. Again, more material. All kinds of stories are in these books by Howard. This is volume 1. This is volume 2, and of course Jeff Jones did the cover on both. And here they were finding fragments of stories, poems, all kinds of things that very interesting ephemera from Robert E. Howard, and there's some really good stuff. These books are a little scarce also. In like around 1977-78, Berkeley Books decided to do some Robert E. Howard books. They did at least 4, and the thing that was cool about them is that they had fold-out covers. So the first one is from 1977, is Red Nails, which is an incredible Conan story, and there's other stories in it, but it also had a poster, fold-out poster. And Ken Kelly now is doing the cover art. The poster's a little damaged, moisture, but you can get the idea. I'll show you the posters on some of the other ones.
Doesn't look it from here.
Yeah. Next, another one is Son of the White Wolf. That was from 1978. Contains 3 stories: Blood of the Gods, Country of the Knife, and Son of the White Wolf. And again, by the creator of Conan, Ken Kelly cover art. Now they move the insert in the middle of the book, not at the beginning. And you can see the entire painting by Ken Kelly, Son of the White Wolf.
It's pretty cool.
So they did these. These are pretty nice. These are really nice. 1978 on this one. Next one is, some of these aren't in great condition, but it is what it is. 1978. Treasures of Tartary, Swords of Shadowzar, Curse of the Crimson God, The Brazen Peacock, The Black Bear Bites. This is Swords of Shadowzar. And Ken Kelly cover art, 1978. And fold out cover. Quite nice. These are again Oriental menace intrigue stories set in far off areas, Pakistan, and in that area of the world. I mentioned Solomon Kane. I have one of the books, Skull in the Stars, and this is published by Bantam Books, and that was from 1978 also. Ramsey Campbell did an introduction, and I don't know who did the cover art on this, but this is Solomon Kane, Skull in the Stars, and this is also has a fold out, but it has a fold out cover like this. And Solomon Kane was a Puritan adventurer in the 1600s. He deals with witches and demons in Africa and in all kinds of mystical realms. I think there's 3 books in this series. This is one. I'm not sure if it's the first one. Yes, this is the first one. They had the number on the spine. There was 3 in the series. The next book is Almeric, which was Robert E. Howard's kind of version of John Carter of Mars. And the first printing was Ace F305 from 1964. That's the first book edition. This was a pulp story that was serialized. It was a novel, serialized. I don't know who did the cover. Maybe Jack Logan maybe did the cover. This is from 1964. It was reprinted, second printing in 1970 with a Jeff Jones cover. It's a pretty good book. It's Robert E. Howard doing Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter of Mars. It's probably doesn't exactly work as good as John Carter, as good as Edgar Rice Burroughs, but it's a Robert E. Howard novel, and it is a terrific book. And then again with in 1975 they published it in the Berkeley printing. This was a again, Almeric was a serial from Weird Tales in 1939. This book has a Ken Kelly cover, and like the other ones that I showed you, the Berkeley books, it has a fold-out cover. And this one folds out from the back. It's a little tricky to get. So I don't know. This is very strange how this one works. It's in backwards. So they put the
upside down. Maybe it's a variant.
Yeah, it's a variant. So it's backwards. So it should have been that way, but it's not.
So cool.
But still, these are pretty cool. So that's Almeric, 3 versions of it. Ace published some books where they collected in the late 70s, early 80s, the rest of some of the Robert E. Howard stories. Ace 29525 from around 1980s, The Gods of Val Sagoth. I don't know who did the cover on it. It's more Conan type heroic fantasy stories. They in 1980 they did the Treasure of Tristanos, which was a story that I believe it was a Conan story, or it was made into a Conan stories. But the interesting thing about this is it wasn't really quite a novel-length book, so they put 50 illustrations in it by Esteban Marado. Esteban Marado was a famous artist in comic books and in the horror magazines, and he did 50 illustrations. I believe he did the cover art also. He was a terrific artist, and this is a nice little book to have with this art in it. And then the last one we'll look at is The Howard Collector. That's Ace paperback from 79. edited by Glenn Lord, who at that time was the executor of the Howard estate. And I knew Glenn. I dealt with him. He wrote some articles on Howard and other things for Paperback Parade in the 80s and 90s. He was a nice fellow, and he was the executor for the Howard estate. And the Howard Collector is actually, they got the title from a famous fanzine under the same title that published a lot of the ephemera, poetry, fragments of stories, and miscellaneous information by Howard and about him, and they collected all of that into this book. So there was kind of a way that they were trying to publish basically everything by and about Howard that they could find. There's many more books that go into Howard's life, his story, his characters. People like Andrew Offutt continued the Cormac MacArt series, and he did rather well on those with a few more books, 3 or 4 more books, and other people also. There were a lot of series, a lot of books of Conan that were, of course, written in the 80s and 90s and 2000s by a lot of different authors, L. Sprague de Camp and Paul Anderson, and then newer author John Maddox Roberts and people, and who did original novels in trade paperback. So those are more recent, but these are the older books. These are the ones that basically I grew up with, and I bought and read and enjoyed. And again, Robert E. Howard, it was a tragedy that he committed suicide. He killed himself at 30 years old. It was a damn shame. He had an incredible career that had just started. It was just, burgeoning, and he had so much more to offer, so much where he could have went, that it's just a shame. But he did leave us a lot of stuff. In those probably 10 years or so that he's, maybe even 8 years that he was writing. I mean, he really wrote a lot of stuff. He wrote his heart out down there in Texas, in Cross Plains, Texas, and he wrote incredible stuff. So if you've never read a Conan story, you've got to don't be put off by the Schwarzenegger movie if you don't like it. The movie's good, but the stories by Howard are so much better. And the stories by other people are good. Some of them are very good, but you cannot get away from the original. And Robert E. Howard is the original, and his work is just terrific. So I hope you enjoyed this look at just a few of the vintage paperbacks of Robert E. Howard, Conan, and his other heroes. And if you did, give us a thumbs up and a like, and share this video with other people. Thanks a lot for looking, and see you next time.